Listen, that's how we're going to start this because that's obviously what's going to happen this time around. That's just what it is. This is our like third or fourth time trying to get this to go. But we are here. We're on Evolve or Remain, third episode. I'm Michael Licoli from Tamara's Wellness Center.
Melissa McLaughlin from Melissa McLaughlin Wellness.
And today I have the pleasure, just like you did last time on the second podcast, of interviewing me. I have the pleasure of interviewing you. So Melissa has been practicing for 10 plus years, and she shares with her clients through facilitating in their healing and growth. She specializes in manual lymphatic drainage, craniosacral therapy, medical massage, Reiki energy, wellness coaching, and corrective and functional personal training. She also co-runs the North Shore Wellnesspreneurs Group, myself over here, and which strives to build a community of wellness business owners in the North Shore by running an annual Health and Wellness Expo, which is coming up in November on the 2nd. And we also hold monthly meetings to build and hone in on business skills for holistic practitioners. She curates and sells wellness warrior packs to those seeking assistance on their journey of self-healing. So, Melissa, welcome to the podcast, to our podcast here as co-host, and I get the pleasure of interviewing you. But before we get started, describe a little bit about the Wellness Warrior Pack, because there's not a lot of information on there.
I know, I need to add to it.
That's all right.
He's reading from my LinkedIn profile.
Got to make it happen somehow.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. But the Wellness Warrior Pack is something that myself and Courtney Lilly from the Danvers Wellness Center curated. There's different packs, so you can get a birthday pack, a chakra boost pack, new beginnings pack, and they have 5 to 8 items in each pack that help you with your healing journey, as well as meditations and journal prompts with Courtney.
Quite a bit of stuff in there for people.
Quite a bit of stuff, yes.
Yeah, pretty awesome. What was the idea behind that? How'd you come up with it? What was your inspiration?
My inspiration is that the clients were always asking me about crystals, about different healing talismans, different affirmation type things. So instead of, just telling them, oh, do this, do that, here's something for you.
Okay.
It's already done. They don't have to think about it. We also create our own essential oil sprays and roll-ons.
Okay. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you got a lot going on.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, today we get to dig a little deeper into who you are, what brought you to this place and point in your life, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. So everybody's curious, what's your background in terms of, well, let's just go right there. Let's go back to early years.
My early years.
Yeah, like what was childhood like for Melissa?
So my childhood was, it was interesting. I started working at 8 years old in an automotive garage because that was the family business. Um, my mom is an earth angel. She's my best friend. She's always been there for myself and my siblings. My dad had his own issues, as we all do. So he did tend to create more turmoil in the home with his, he had some narcissistic tendencies, and there was just a lot of turmoil between myself and my siblings growing up. And growing up in the automotive industry too, at 8 years old, a young girl, you're surrounded by sex, drugs, and alcohol from an early age, so you think it's normal.
Yeah, my father was a mechanic for many, many years, so I used to go visit him, and he'd take me with him to his shop. And I remember the calendars that were up there, and the after works and all that stuff. So very familiar with that lifestyle.
Very much. So I actually started. Getting involved in my substances really there. It didn't help that in my early teens, I am a survivor of sexual abuse, and eating disorder. I was bullied really, really hard. Never was able to fit in. So those are just some of the things that that I went through at an early age, between 10 to 14. And then at 14, I was a softball pitcher, and I was pretty good too. I could have gotten a scholarship. I was on varsity all 4 years of high school, but then in between seasons, I was getting surgeries. So I had 3 shoulder surgeries on my rotator cuff throughout
Wow.
high school. My first one, I was 14, and the doctors started prescribing me Percocets
When you were 14.
when I was 14.
So, I mean, we look back there, and I mean, you're looking at 20 years ago, and they're already prescribing you perks.
Yeah.
They didn't know much about them back then, I don't think.
Well, there was a whole push back then with Purdue and back in the
Sure.
90s, you
Yeah,
know?
we've probably all seen the Netflix documentaries at this point on the painkillers and everything like that that's been out there.
Right, right. So I feel like I was part of that. I had experienced that. And my mother had found out, because I was taking upwards of maybe 6 to 8 pills a day. Um, and my mom found out and flushed them down the toilet, which resulted in me going into severe detox for
How,
about 2 weeks, and I had no idea what the hell was happening.
how long were you on the perks for?
Um, it was a couple of months,
Did you
probably.
eh, did you find that became an escape for you with
Oh
everything
yeah,
that you had experienced in your life? Some of the things that you were talking about in terms of abuse and food issues and things of that nature.
definitely. It was an escape. And then as soon as I detoxed off of that, my alcoholism took over. So I became a severe alcoholic around the age of 16.
Okay, so it was you were
Yeah,
looking for something to escape from.
right.
Okay, what and this is going to be one of those questions that you answer now and looking back. What was it? What did you figure out? What was that thing that you were running from?
That thing I was running from, well, I guess at that point, I just I didn't feel worthy of anything. I also didn't feel protected. So I felt severe fight or flight back then. Um, I felt like nobody really had my back because at the same time that all the trauma was happening, my parents were getting divorced, and there was a lot of family turning against family, so a lot of family drama, and it was just like nobody was paying attention to what was happening within me.
This was during
So
your teenage years?
this was during my teenage years.
Okay. So very formative years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I don't think at that point I was running from anything with the substance abuse. It was more of an escape of the trauma that was occurring during those years.
Okay.
And then just numbing myself out as well to having a narcissistic parent. Um,
What was
it,
that like in the home?
there was so much turmoil. It was always his way or the highway. Couldn't do anything right. Even though, when you're in that mode of being a child to a narcissist, you're constantly trying to get their approval.
Yeah.
And that's something that I dealt with up until I closed my wellness center that I had owned a few years ago. I figured out that I wasn't happy and I wasn't building my business for me. I was building my business to make him proud. And how can you do that when your father's been dead for, that was probably 8 or 9 years at that point?
So years later, you're still looking for his approval.
Right.
When did that change for you?
That changed for me when I had that realization. And that was actually after I was hospitalized with COVID 2 years ago.
Okay.
Um, I was drinking, I was doing other sorts of activities that actually weakened my immune system to the point when I got COVID, I couldn't fight it. And when I was in isolation for 10 days, it does something to you, especially with all the drugs that they pump into you to help your body fight that. And on top of it, I had actually pneumonia as well. Bacterial pneumonia on top of COVID. So when I was in there, I realized, geez, I'm really not happy. I wasn't happy with where I was living at the time in Lynn. I wasn't happy with my business. And that's why I kept spiraling out, is what I call it.
Okay.
Because I'd go through times where I could give up the drinking for a month, but then I'd go right back to my MO, and I'd say, oh, I just spiraled out again. And for years, I was like, oh, I got to give it up.
So for years, you felt like you were on repeat since your teenage days.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you have friends that you kind of shared in this with? Like what was that kind of like high school look at?
I was never really able to keep friends.
Okay.
I would have friends, we'd, do the substances together, and then we'd split off because it wasn't help. I mean, looking back at it now, I realized that I was the one with the addiction, the problem. And, I was bringing them into it. So I went through cycles where I would have a friend for a while and then we'd stop hanging out and it kept continuing. Um, and that all really led up to a few years ago, right when COVID happened. I had lost two of my best friends. They dropped me, um, because of, they had an issue with the guy that I was dating. But looking at that relationship too, like it wasn't just him, it was me. It always takes two to tango.
Doesn't it? I think we can always, flip the script and say, okay, it's their fault, it's their fault. But, we got to own our part in it all.
We do. And then a few months later, we ended up breaking up. That was a 5-year relationship. And then I had nobody. And that was at the same time that I was starting my steps towards getting sober. Um, and I was actually doing a deep dive with healing my sexual abuse trauma
Okay.
at that time.
So, so describe that. What's that look like? A deep dive into um, going to that place where you have to revisit some things that you may not want to revisit, that you don't want to think about.
Yeah, so that actually it took some time. And I spiraled out a couple of times during the process as well because I was still using. And I had to open up the memories of it because I had blocked it out. And it was painful emotionally and physically. Um, because the only way that I knew how to manage what was coming up was by drinking alcohol
Right.
to numb it out. But I was, that's when I was really getting into my yoga and journaling and being open with my mom about what had happened. Also coming to realize as an adult that the places that those people were in back then, they were there for their own reasons.
Of course.
So trying to find the compassion and the forgiveness in the moment
I knew you were going there.
was very difficult.
Yeah.
But it was the only way that I could heal myself from it.
And I think a lot of people that are listening to this right now would say that's so difficult to do, to find forgiveness in someone who, one, is no longer here, can't say anything to it. Like, how does that all work?
Starting with self and having compassion and forgiveness for yourself. There was also a lot of inner child healing
During that same time?
during that same
So
time.
you're deep diving into a pretty intense topic already. You're adding a layer of inner child work to it,
Yeah,
which always comes with shadow work.
there was a lot of shadow work at that time.
Okay. I mean, it's no wonder that, that you had moments of spiraling out of control and trying to cope with it in different ways and still using during that time.
Right.
So what other things were you doing? Like what modalities were you using? Was there alternative therapies? What did you find? How did you do this work?
So this work, and I mean, generalizing over the last 10 years, because that's when I became a massage therapist and started dabbling with energy work. From there, I started getting into Reiki. So I was getting body work treatments. I was getting Reiki treatments.
Mhm.
Um, so I really think that that helped, as well as the yoga, because yoga allows you to go back into your body. And I realized that I was completely disconnected for decades, and it was just bringing yourself back in so that you can do the work.
That moment you make that realization of like, oh my God, I have not been in my body
Right.
for years.
Right.
For years. Where have I been?
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, the substances, help you disconnect
Of course they do. Over and over. They
over and
lower your
over.
vibration and they get you out of your body.
Right.
So you don't have to deal with that pain.
Right. Exactly. So over the last 2 or 3 years now, I can say that the old self feels like more of a memory
Yep.
because I've been able to shed the layers, and my new tribe that I've been building aligns so much more with who I am meant to be. And that's one of the most important things in life, is to surround yourself with those people
Right.
that inspire you and build you up, and allow you to step into that place.
What, how long was the time frame of you going into that deep dive and working on yourself? Because I think, we skim over it, right? It's been a few minutes we've been talking about it, and I think people are like, oh my God, how long does that deep dive take? For you, how long was it? Was it a period of 6 months, a year?
It's hard to put a timetable on it
It was a
because
progression,
it's a progression, because we're like onions.
right? But when do you think you
So
started that work?
back at massage school,
Okay, that's when
because
it
that's when
began.
I took a course in polarity and started getting into the meditation type stuff. Um, and it was just I say when my dad passed away, it felt like the chains were lifted. He gave me permission to do what I wanted to do, and that's what I needed before he died. And then when he died, the chains were removed so that I could step into my healing. So the over the 10 years, I'm going to say that the whole time has honestly been a deep dive. I'm not ever not healing now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm constantly doing inner work.
Oh, it's exhausting
It
at
can be.
times because and I've gotten to the place where I'm like, I just need a break,
Yeah,
you know? Like my body, my brain, my emotions, my feelings needs a break from this work.
right.
And I think it's important that we take breaks from it, but we have to go back in because we've made that commitment to ourselves. And not just to
Exactly.
ourselves at that point, to the people around you. You're talking about the new tribe that you're forming,
Yeah,
right? The new people that you're bringing in. You owe it to them, not just yourself.
right.
We all do in that sense.
Exactly. And from a coaching perspective, and how I coach people too, the energetic, the physical, the mental, they all have to integrate at the same time. So if one piece of the puzzle, say the mental space, right, that's leveling up, well, you can experience physical pain because your body isn't leveling up at that same rate.
Right.
So you need to take that time to integrate.
Hmm.
And whether that's, going back into nature or getting a grounding bodywork treatment,
Right. Of course.
to move the energy out of your body.
Hmm.
That I find really helps me. So I stay very consistent with getting my own body work done for that reason. And I can't handle deep pressure, deep pain. My body won't hold it and I think for me, that because I can't handle that deep pressure, it's because my body was in that fight or flight mode for so long. I was in survival mode for so long.
Right.
So now when I go to get a treatment and they start doing that, my body goes right back to that survival mode.
Right. And that's a really good point, because we don't realize, just because we've dealt with a lot of those demons per se, that it won't still show itself in different ways.
Right.
We have to be conscious that, like, oh, okay, we're not going to do that because I know where that's going to lead. But I've done the work there. I'm good right now.
Right.
I can move on from that and feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it took you to leap forward, and what it took was your father's passing.
Yes.
That gave you the green light, the go ahead.
Right.
And prior to that, you didn't feel that you could make that leap?
No, because I was living the life that he wanted me to live.
Okay.
So
his business, I assume?
His business, yeah.
Okay.
And
Auto body shop was his.
well, we did everything automotive. So
Okay.
we had about 5 businesses
Wow.
that we ran. Yeah, so that was a lot. And I used to fix cars when I was a
You
teen.
told me this. I was like, really? All right. That's super
Yeah.
cool.
Don't ask me to do it now because the cars are all different. But
They really are made completely different.
but instead of fixing cars now, I help fix bodies. So
I referred to myself at one point as a body mechanic,
exactly.
because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We go in and we work on the body.
Right. We have
Yeah.
to find the root cause.
Exactly.
Figure
Energy
out
body, physical body, emotional body. It's all body.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
So I did gain a lot of positive things from the shop. And those things were, how to run a business and that business mindset. Also strength, the amount of strength that I realized that I had developed in that space. I can still carry that with me.
Yeah, you always. I was going to ask that question. You jump right to it. That's fantastic. What's a lesson? What was the gift you received? And I ask this of my clients all the time, especially in really difficult, traumatic situations. There's always a gift or a lesson.
Always.
So what was yours?
It was the knowledge that I had learned from my father. Um, and there were a lot of lessons. So it was the knowledge, it was the strength. I'm not going to say patience because that was developed more in the recent years.
Takes time.
Yes,
Yeah, it takes time
yes.
to get through all that stuff.
But also, I learned how I didn't want to live. And it was a very materialistic life that we had. He provided for us really well. And I feel like that he was very insecure in himself.
Okay.
So I feel like his power came from the materialistic items that he could provide. But also, he was egocentric. So that status that he tried to uphold. And I realized that I don't want that. That doesn't bring you happiness.
Right. Now, looking back, did you know a lot about your father's past?
No, I didn't.
So that was always a secret. Not a secret per se, but it never really spoken about.
Well, I know he was adopted.
Okay.
And he never wanted to know who his real parents were. His father was a very hardline man too. And his mother had died when he was probably in his 20s.
Okay.
But besides that, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
And this is a conversation that I actually have with my mom more recently so that I can try to understand him more, and where he was. So yeah, I mean, I think that it really came from his insecurities, his own traumas,
Of course.
and the status,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that intertwined turned him narcissistic.
Right.
So I have compassion for him.
So you do. You have
Of
that
course
compassion,
I
that
do.
grace, because you realize they're parenting you and raising you in a way that they've probably been raised themselves.
Right.
And at some point, we have to break the cycle.
Yes. And that's what I'm doing. I am, I've been considered the black sheep of the family.
Join the club. Yep.
So that's fun.
Yep.
And I'm here to break generational, ancestral,
Yeah.
the ways, that's what
This is
my
really,
job is.
this is so that ancestral healing, and not a lot of people know this. I know we've kind of touched upon it a little bit. Um, when we refer to ancestral healing, we have to be specific and almost a little bit scientific. That trauma is held in the cells,
Yes.
and if not dealt with, it'll get passed on to the next generation through your DNA. It lives in your DNA. So then maybe it wasn't your problem, you didn't cause it, but guess what? It was inherited. And when I say break the cycle, at some point we don't want to pass it on to our children and have them pass it on to theirs. So at some point something has to change. So that's I look at it as that scientific point of view of ancestral healing.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think we can in that moment have a little bit of compassion is what you're talking about.
You
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Everything stems from the heart. Everything is love. It depends on
Isn't it
how you
though?
show it.
Yeah,
It depends on how you show that love, but everything needs to stem from the heart.
so true. So true. Living authentically from the heart without any fakeness or reserving yourself, wearing the masks, all
Right.
of it. Yeah.
And when you step into that authentic self, that's when your real tribe shows up.
Yeah.
Honestly.
They're not coming in prior to that, I'll tell you that
No.
much. And if they do show up prior to that, it's a test.
Yes.
It's a test. And you'll lose them pretty quickly if you're not who you say you are. You know? People will know. People
So
will know.
true.
So let's find out a little bit more about you in the sense of like what's been a big inspiration in your life? What's the driving factor today?
Driving factor today.
For I mean we know what you do,
Mm-hmm.
right? What keeps you going though? You've changed.
I have.
What's that new inspiration?
I just want to be happy. That's my inspiration, and I'm going to continue to do the work so that I can be. One of the words that I don't really like is the word content. And, I understand it, but I want to be able to feel happiness. I want to be able to feel joy. And I understand that with those emotions, you always need to deal with the shadow as well.
You do. Because happiness can be fleeting. We can't always be chasing it and stuff like that. We have to accept that we're happy in the moment. We might be in the next. We might not be in the next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they do change, they do evolve. But I will say that feeling these emotions is something that I embrace now because I didn't feel them for the majority of my life. So I'd say happiness
Okay.
is an inspiration. And seeing what I have been able to help people with and having them reach their happiness as well, their light and spreading the love because there's way too much negativity out there.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh or giggle, but I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's nuts.
Yeah, the world is not um, a nice place right now.
It's not. And a mantra, or whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
that I love to repeat to myself that actually really helped me through a few of the years of healing was not my circus, not my monkeys. And let me tell you, when you meet your trauma and your obstacles with comedy,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a good way to get through it.
It's just one big adult soap opera. In the last 48 hours, I think it's come up more than not. And I was talking to Courtney about this. I'm like, it's literally, and I think we said it the other day. We're just a bunch of kids walking around in adult-sized bodies with a bunch of inner child wounds,
Pretty much.
yelling and screaming at each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like nobody knows how to deal with themselves.
Right.
Nobody's taking responsibility or accountability for themselves. And you see where the world is at because you have a bunch of people in these positions, very high ranking, and they probably got a lot of deep inner child issues that they need to work out.
Yeah.
So,
And that's why they won't, well, that also brings up perspective too,
mm-hmm,
because the inner child wounds prevent you from being able to see somebody else's perspective in a situation.
right.
So if these negative figures out there, right, that only see one way, were able to open their eyes a little bit and see
Mm-hmm,
the other person's perspective,
mm-hmm.
I feel like we'd be able to come to more agreements in a healthy way
Yeah.
than what it is now.
It's healthy to have a debate, to have differences of opinion. It's healthy because
Yes.
we're all different, we're all unique. But being able to sit down in the moment, being able to debate that in a healthy, positive way and come to some sort of middle ground doesn't seem like it happens very often.
No. And I
Not
mean,
now anyway.
all you can really do in a situation is express your opinion,
Mm-hmm.
your perspective,
Yep.
and the other person needs to be receptive of that and say, okay, I see that, but I still see it this way. That's a healthy way to have a debate that isn't negative,
Mm-hmm.
that you see the other person's perspective, and receive it, right? Instead of creating a battle zone.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. So talk to me a little bit about business because that brings up its own challenges and issues too, right? What have been some of the challenges you faced along the way in having your own businesses? I mean, you grew up in a family that had five different businesses. So it's natural that you gravitated towards business and
Yes.
owning your own business and not. And is that something that you always done? Did you ever work for anybody else?
I had small jobs over the years. When I was in college, I had to have 3 jobs so that I could maintain my addictions. But that's how I paid for them.
Yep,
Um,
very familiar.
I mean, I've had small jobs working for other people, but really, it's always been either the family business or my business. Um, After my dad died, I tried staying in the family business for a while, but decided that I would rather have a relationship with my brother instead of us being at a full on battle all the time. So
Okay.
I just stepped out and I started on my own thing. So as soon as I was done with massage school, I started out on my own. And that with my undergraduate and Bachelor of Science, exercise physiology, it was doors open at that point. So
Right.
I kept learning class after class. And I started out as just by myself, which is where I am now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I grew from being a sole proprietor at the Cummings Center in Beverly to a wellness center in 2 different locations where I had renters and employees, contractors. Um, but I found, especially when I had the COVID, that building those wellness centers took me away from my true work and what I'm truly here to do. And what that is to help people with their journeys, whether it's pain, rehabilitation, or emotional pain that they're experiencing. So once I closed my wellness center, I was able to just go back into working for myself and working with my clients. And then I was able to add in the other businesses that I also have a passion with doing. So growing the wellness center, I helped businesses get established. I showed a lot of people the way and showed them that they had the capabilities to do it themselves. And that is a passion of mine that I love. So I'm happy that we've been able to grow this other business together, so that I can continue to help people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in our field, I feel like a lot of people in it struggle with that business mindset.
They do. holistic practitioners in general, energy healers, um, alternative therapies, practitioners, they all, not, I'm not going to say all, but a lot do struggle with the business side of things, do struggle with money, because what we do is we're able to help clients in a completely different way. And that's a reward in and of itself. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we do have to make a living, you know?
Money is energy.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I tell people. It's an exchange
Yes.
of energy. Back in the day when the medicine woman or medicine man in the village, you'd go visit them, you'd actually show up with some sort of offering.
Right.
You wouldn't show up empty-handed. Now, it might not be a piece of green paper like we see it today, but it could be something that meant something to that person that's giving, like a rock or a shell or
Yeah.
something of value to them, and they would offer it up. It's an exchange, and it has to be done that way.
It does. And it took me a long time to realize what my worth was as well. In business, but also in life too. So I started out 10 years ago, 60-minute massage for $36. Like really, really low, just trying to build. Um, and then it kept changing from there.
Sure.
So now I do charge what I feel I'm worth. Um, so yeah, so that was a big realization for me. And now stepping into being able to deliver not only bodywork treatments, but wellness coaching, the corrective and functional personal training. Um, it's just one-stop shop, which is funny because I can reflect back on the automotive business, and that was one of our slogans, a one-stop shop.
It was one of my business's slogan too. Yeah.
So we can help you with so many different things.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I want to touch on it a little bit because I heard you say brother. You have one sibling?
I have three.
You have three siblings. So what was that like growing up in the family with them, especially with the father being narcissistic? You guys got five businesses. What was the dynamic between you and your siblings?
Honestly, the dynamic was fucked.
Okay, we're going there. All right.
um, I didn't know until I was about 14 that my older two siblings weren't my father's. Um, because he had adopted them.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was an interesting realization. But not that didn't change any mindset. They were still my siblings.
So, okay. Okay. I mean, at
Hmm.
that point, they're still your siblings. You've grown up with them pretty much since you were a baby, I assume.
Oh yeah, we grew up
They were in
together.
the home since that point.
Yeah.
Were they older than you?
Yeah, my brother and they're about 8 to 10 years
Eight.
older.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, so the dynamic was tough because, like I said, our dad, any opportunity he had, he would try to turn us against each other.
Okay. So you have three other siblings,
Hmm.
two of which are brothers,
Two brothers and one sister.
two brothers and one sister. The two brothers are older.
One brother is younger,
Okay.
one's older, and my sister's the oldest.
Are you all adopted?
No,
Okay.
no,
But three are.
two.
Two are.
Hmm.
Two. You and someone else.
No, 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 my older
Okay.
two.
The older two are
Older
adopted.
two. Hmm.
Okay. Understood. So you have a narcissistic father, went through adoption, bring two kids into the home. Is this a dynamic that you and your mom have talked about in terms of like what was their reason for adoption, I guess?
Well, they had a different dad. So
Okay.
my mom had struggled with
Okay.
relationship things as
Understood.
well. Um, and luckily she's in a very, very good relationship now.
Okay.
So we've been able to talk through that growth for her as well, and I'm so happy for her with where her path is led. Um,
Notifications and such.
but
We're moving on.
and we reflect on um all of myself and my siblings' traumas and where they stem from.
So you guys all experience things at a completely different level, I assume,
A different level, and we are all dealing with them in a different way as
in a different
well.
way. But nobody was left unscathed.
No,
Okay.
we were all affected. We all had our own trauma, have our own traumas from it.
Do you talk about it today
Um,
with them?
not with them, no.
Okay.
So that is something that has been left unhealed.
Understood.
And it's something that I've actually, after listening to a podcast,
Hmm.
actually, Danny Morell,
Oh, love Danny Morell.
me too.
Fantastic. Guy's amazing.
He's great. And one of the topics was about healing the relationships with your family,
Hmm. Yeah,
and that's something that I haven't really dove into yet. And if anybody in the family is going to be doing that, it's me.
it's you. You're the one that's going to be the catalyst for that, you think?
I know
You
I
know it.
will,
Yeah.
but I'm not ready yet.
You know, there's something to be said about being that person when you've gone through your own healing. You come out in a way that is so much stronger. It takes a while to get to that place of strength and resilience. But you find that you're able to stand on your own 2 feet in a way that you start looking around, you're like, oh my God, the people that I thought had their shit together really fucking don't.
Hmm.
And now I have my shit together, but I have an opportunity to help those people behind me,
Right,
you know?
right. And I will say that more recently, I've actually seen my siblings in their own growth, and I couldn't be prouder of what they're turning into.
Hmm.
Um, so I will say that I have the ability to take a step back and view that,
Right.
but also allow them the space to do their healing on their own.
Of course. You gotta respect that.
Right, because a lot of times, which I think we were talking about earlier too, is that, we might look at somebody that we're involved with, a partner, a family member, and want them to heal and be a better person faster than what they're currently doing.
Sure. Well,
And it's a rude awakening when you realize you have zero control over that person, what they're capable of,
yeah.
you
The
know.
time and the space needed for them to go through their own process.
You
You
just have
know,
to allow it to flow for them.
you do.
You have to allow them to make their own decisions.
Hmm. Agreed.
You can have your perspective and your opinions about it.
But that's just what they are. They're your
Yeah,
perspectives and opinions, not that person's.
right,
And not based upon from what they're going through right now. They're seeing through a completely different set of glasses.
right.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting place to be in.
Mm.
But you just have to let people work through their stuff
You do.
and be who they are going to be.
Have grace for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to, if you're going to show up authentically, you have to allow them to show up authentically too.
You do.
And you can't control their place in this world.
No, and you know what? You have to say to yourself too, even when they show up authentically, sometimes they're not showing up authentically, right? They're showing up from where they are right now,
Right,
from that place. And maybe they're not healed in a way that you might be in certain ways. But that doesn't mean they're not healed in other ways you're not.
right.
So just know that when you're looking at somebody, it is a mirror. It's a back and forth. It's that they're showing you what you need to work on. You're showing them what they need to work on.
And
You're
if
here
you,
all for a reason.
is it true that like something that you pick up on, and then somebody else is a reflection of something that you don't like in you,
Oh, you're damn right.
right?
I've had plenty of ex-girlfriends that have shown me plenty of crap that I hated about myself. I just didn't want to see it at the time,
Right,
you know?
right. And same with me. Talking about narcissism, and I think I've mentioned in past podcasts too, because of my traumas,
Mm,
I realized that I had narcissistic tendencies,
right?
right? And something that really led to me realizing that was when I lost two of my best friends. That was, you know, they were my best friends for probably 10 years. And then my boyfriend. And I realized, like, oh shit, I'm the problem, you
Mm,
know?
wow.
So having realized that, it's been a journey with relationships since then because I tended to keep gravitating towards those narcissistic men because it was something that I knew,
It's comfortable.
it was familiar.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
That's what you were taught. That you were taught basically like, oh, well, that's supposed to be.
right,
Not just man, just in general, like, oh, that's what people are supposed to be,
right,
you know?
right. And then it took multiple shedding of layers for me to realize that you're gravitating towards them or you're attracting them because you might still have a little bit of that in you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So the last one, I was actually able to walk away very, very quickly
Okay.
and realize that that is no longer who I am, and that is no longer what I will put up with. And that was a super empowering place to be in. And regaining my power back after that
Hmm.
was just it was super inspiring for myself and just knowing that that is something that I can help others with too. Regaining your power back after narcissistic abuse because I experienced it over and over again and how I had to keep regaining my power back each and every time.
And every time you got a little bit stronger, a little bit
Yes.
stronger, a little bit stronger. I'm extremely familiar with the process because, yeah, like you, I've been involved with many partners who have narcissistic tendencies to the 18th degree,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that was there to teach me because it always is,
Yeah.
right? Show us things in ourselves that we don't like. Ultimately, it's to push you to a level of growth that you need to heal. And it always seems like a common thread that us quote unquote healers in the industry, we've been with a lot of narcissistic partners.
Yeah, it is a very common thread. Also, narcissists love the light.
Yes, they do.
They love the positivity that you give off,
They
and they
feed off of
feed
it like
off
a
of it.
vampire.
Right.
Yep.
So they they love, and it's subconscious most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. A lot of them don't know.
Right.
Some do, and the ones that do are sociopaths.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you
Yes.
know.
Uh-huh. But they thrive off of dimming that light
Hmm.
and gaining it for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so yeah, no more of that.
No, no more of that. You know. So talk to us about some passion stuff, some passion projects. What are your passions? What are your hobbies?
So my hobbies, I love DIYing.
Okay.
Love it. I love taking an old busted up dresser and making it into something pretty. So a lot of items in my home and my business are DIY projects
Okay.
actually.
Very cool.
Um, I do a lot of home repairs
Hmm.
myself, um, which I really do enjoy doing, and being in nature is a huge thing for me. So I love even just walking my dog through, Endicott Park and just getting into nature, doing a little trails and
Got it.
um yeah, I've started reading more as well, so different types of books. Right now I'm reading the book Power: Surviving and Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse.
I've heard about this book over the last few weeks from a few different people.
It's a really good book, and it's piecing together a lot of information and science
Mm.
behind narcissism, toxic behavior, sociopaths.
See, I did so much research at one point and read so many books and so many articles and watched so many videos and documentaries on narcissistic abuse because of what I had gone through that I felt at one point I was like, oh my God, I can't. watch or read anything else on this topic. I've had enough. And there was a point where I had to come out of it, and I don't know if you felt the same way, where I would look at everybody like everybody's a goddamn narcissist. And then I had to even look in the mirror and go, are you the goddamn narcissist?
Yes.
You know, it was a constant questioning back and forth. So I had to drop it for a while.
Yep, you have to
You
do
know?
that. It's heavy. It's heavy stuff. And you have to pace it out for yourself. Um, so so that's a good resource if you're working through narcissistic abuse. Also, Dr. Ramani on YouTube is a really good resource as well.
I'm familiar with.
So I've been watching
Yeah.
her videos.
Okay.
But I love exercise too, working
Mm-hmm.
out, yoga. I've established a really healthy morning routine for myself. Um, so I guess those are really my passions and what keep me going and helping me stay clear. And more recently, we actually got a drum set in the house. So I've been playing a little bit of that.
Wait, who's the drummer?
My roommate.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I was like, is it you?
No, I wish. I'm trying. And I do like to play pool as well. So
Love
billiards
playing pool.
and
Yeah.
all of that. So those are just some things that I like to do when I'm not working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And music, live music, Tom Petty.
Right? So good. So good. Talk to me about a milestone or achievement that you're extremely proud of in your life.
Um, I'd have to say my home.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though at times it may seem like a burden, I do have to take that step back and just realize that I've worked my ass off to get there,
And you own your home.
that I own my home. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So even through my addictions, I was a very high functioning addict. But I was able to do that without any help, which is great. Um, yeah, I'd have to
Okay.
say that that's my biggest achievement.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And you've added a puppy somewhat recently. He's not so
Yes,
much of
he's
a
not a
puppy. No, he's not
puppy,
really a
but
puppy, but
I
you
am a
know,
I am a fur mom.
yeah,
I am a fur baby, and I will say fur babies are the best babies.
yeah. What's that like having your fur baby in the house
Oh, it's
now? Because you just
great.
added him what, last year?
Yeah, I just got him in October. I had another one prior, but I had lost her, which that was one of the biggest losses I've ever experienced.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
They become like your children.
well, since I don't have kids,
Right.
they are my children.
Yeah.
So it's he brings me a ton of joy and he gets me outside.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm living my best life.
What advice would you give? Let's start with the advice that you would give to your younger self. Knowing everything you know today.
I would have to probably say to live your life for you, to really just, take care of self first. And it's not selfish in any way, and some people may perceive it that way. But when you don't live your life for yourself and you're living it for other people, you're abiding by what other people want you to be and how they want to see you,
Hmm.
then you can't be authentic
No.
and you can't be your true self.
No, you literally have to put yourself in a completely different state of mind, another body, just to live up to someone else's expectation of what they want for you.
Right. Exactly. So, and to know that in that place, especially in my childhood, nobody else had my back, but I had my back, right?
Right.
So that was a big thing too that I would want to tell her.
Okay.
Yeah, and that she was safe. Even though at the time, she wasn't, those things were happening for a reason.
Of course.
And To just trust the universe.
What's the advice you would give everybody listening right
Not my circus, not my monkeys.
now?
Stay in your own lane.
Stay in your own lane. That's a good one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And turn on your fucking blankets.
Seriously, people, turn your fucking blinkers on. I've fucking had it. What's the future hold?
The future holds growth and love. That's what the future holds.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't put too much mind into the future or the past anymore,
Okay.
because that's where I used to live,
Got it.
and that caused a lot of anxiety. But more recent, like the last year, I don't struggle with anxiety or depression like I used to,
Okay.
because I try to stay in the now
Right.
as much as possible.
So then it could be hard to answer this final question here. But spring forward, that day you're sitting on your deathbed. What do you want to leave behind? Like, what's that legacy that you want people to look at and say, this is what I've left behind. I've been able to give back in this way. What is that thing?
That I've created change in individuals and community. I guess that would be my legacy,
Okay.
to know that I've done that.
Okay. Melissa, thank you, because I know we talked about a lot of, tough topics. So I appreciate you sharing and being open. And I want to tell everybody out there, thank you so much for listening to us in our podcast here. This is the third episode. We're going to be back next time in a few weeks. Melissa, thank you so much again. You're here on Evolve or Remain, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mike, for this. And we do want to tell you about a group that we are going to be starting in March.
That is correct, yes.
March 8th at 1 o'clock at the Danvers Wellness Center. It's called the Evolve or Remain group. And it's an hour and a half group coaching and healing session.
Yes. We're going to be working with you on the things that we're talking about in this podcast. Everything that we discussed with Melissa that she shared openly with us, everything that I've talked about, the reason for this podcast, based in trauma, based in addiction, based in like wanting to be sober curious, like what is all this about? A new way of living. That's the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be doing so much, and so much healing, so much coaching, deep diving.
Very much. And just know too, like collectively, where we're all at right now. We're stepping into a new world, a new age. So a lot more people are coming over to the side of the healing in order to step into that frequency.
Yep, it's true. People are realizing more and more they want the things that increase your vibration, not the things that decrease your vibration. They don't want the drugs. They don't want the alcohol. They don't want the escapism from any and every type of thing that you could get escapism from.
Right.
They don't want to run anymore. And we're seeing it every day, and that's the reason for this group being put together.
Very much so. I do want to let you know about a few things that I'm doing in my business too. I do my bodywork treatments, but I'm also creating workshops. My first workshop is a Zoom live starting in March for breath and stretch. It's Monday nights for an hour where I help you reconnect and regulate your nervous system through breath work and mobility. And then in April, I have a Dump Your Junk workshop at the Danvers Wellness Center.
Oh, what is going on here? What is this about? What is this one about?
This one is lymphatic drainage. So I will give you an abbreviated Your Lymphatics 101, and then go into different routines that will help you clear out inflammation and help you reconnect to your physical body. So there's like 3 or 4 routines that I'll include. This will also help for those who are doing dry brushing, gua sha, anybody with GI issues. So these routines really do help support that. And then in the fall, I am creating a workshop for regaining your power back after
Fantastic.
narcissistic abuse.
Abuse. Yes.
So those are just some things that will be coming up.
How can they find you?
Stay tuned on my social at Melissa McLaughlin Wellness.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to add, Melissa?
No, I think that's it.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to see you next time on Evolve or Remain. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you so much.